Hey. Hold on. It's a little late in the day, but I got a question. I like to answer questions when I get them. And apparently, there's a debate going around about mosquitoes. Because, well, hold on. There's an initiative to get them damn bugs. They try to get all us. They try to kill us. We gotta get the bugs. And apparently, there's some discussions going around about legalizing DDT again. And I'm probably not the right person to ask, but I was asked anyway. So we're gonna try to deal with this question. And before I know my friends, and y'all know how I am. Before we jump in, and, oh heck no, crazy, crazy out your mind. I think what we have to do is to look at the case for it, right? Let's look at what they're talking about. It's important to put forward the information that 1 million people a year die from malaria, right? So I'm just gonna kind of put that out there. So we have to deal with things, I think, in a methodical way, right? Like, we all have beliefs and we have to question our beliefs all the time. I'm not a big chemical guy at all. I love science, but I'm not a big chemical guy, big holistic guy. So yeah, it's Rachel Carlson, right? So thank you, Brother Mark. You know, there's this initiative with, hold on, let me get rid of the mosquito. I got the mosquito background, so that's, so let me be fair. I hate mosquitoes. I hate them. I hate them with a passion. I hate them. I can't stand. I don't have nothing to do with no mosquitoes. I think since the beginning of time, man is always trying to kill nature, kill the bugs trying to get us, the ants, the bees. You ever watch that movie? I think it's called The Bees. People always want to try to fight nature. Nature's broken. We got to fix nature. Nature broken. And so, but when we're posed with these questions, we do have to have some sort of a methodical approach to kind of addressing it. And I kind of did some looking around, and I didn't see anything where anyone's really addressing the questions. And a lot of it stems around the third world, right? So 1 million people a year die from DDT. Those are humans. So we have to really kind of look at this thing and try to look at some solutions. And so I think what happened is there was a hearing, and I think it was 1971, 72, after they banned them, and they concluded that it was not carcinogenic. DDT was not carcinogenic, and it was not mutagenic, is the information put forward. So let's kind of watch a little. I got a few clips we watch. I want to make sure that we definitely let the case be made in terms of whether or not we should be getting rid of DDT. And I think the best place to start, got to go back to the beginning.
It begins with the war-born development of DDT. This diabolical weapon of modern science saved millions of humans, but killed billions of insects. Man, with this newly discovered force, has at long last gained the upper hand in our age-old struggle. The really heavy blow fell only a few months ago. It came from laboratories where top scientists from famous universities and from industrial and government organizations collaborated to develop something new and different. They succeeded. They perfected Pestroy, the most effective weapon man has ever wielded against insects. In both its forms, powder and liquid, Pestroy means doomsday to us insects. For this new insect destroyer contains a lot of DDT, not just a little. Its DDT content is even higher than government specifications. But the really sure kill feature of this insect killer isn't simply that it contains DDT, it's the way that it makes sure that bugs get the DDT that's in it. For example, take this liquid form, Pestroy DDT synthetic resin coating, ideal for vertical surfaces. It's brushed on easily and quickly and dries in half an hour. It forms a clear, long-lasting protective coating, scarcely noticeable on most surfaces. Other preparations, sprays for instance, not only irritate the nasal passages and fog up the atmosphere, but quickly lose their effectiveness as the fog is dissipated. As a result, spraying must be repeated time after time. But not so with this. Pestroy goes right where it should go to kill insects. And once applied, it keeps right on killing them.
And it's clear. So you know it's got to be healthy. It's clear. You can't see nothing, no residue. So all right, let's do this. Let me jump on over here. Jump on over to the swamp. All right, you got to be in the swamp. If you're not in the swamp, then you're not really, because I think you got to embrace the mosquito hate, right? You have to embrace the mosquito, the hatred for mosquitoes. I can't stand no mosquitoes. But the reality is, I'm not even sure what the reality is. I don't know why we're back to this question, but it's a question. It's a thing. I always question, though, like the intent of a thing. So they want to save the people in South America, and they want to save the people in Afghanistan. They want to save the people in Africa. And, you know, me being a skeptic, I always stop and always question, well, okay. So outside of the motives of what I think, for some reason, I just see y'all killing those people. So I think it's kind of interesting that now we're trying to save them. But okay, let's be fair. Let me try to see if we can let them make a case for doing this. I've got, and that was one of the old DDT propaganda ones, but I think I got a newer one. So let's get a little serious and look at what the case that they're trying to make is.
That the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth should inform public policy on this question. Now, 40 years ago, DDT, the only effective agent against the malaria mosquito, was banned. And you saw in that film what the effect of that ban was. Before the ban, the inventor of DDT got the Nobel Prize because he had saved more lives than anyone else in the history of the planet. Malaria, one of the greatest killers of children in the third world, had all but been eradicated. There were still 50,000 deaths per year. But when DDT was banned, by exactly the same faction that is now trying to tell us we must close down 5/6 of the United States economy, that figure is actually in the Waxman-Markey bill, that same faction banned DDT worldwide. The consequences on the slide there. The number of deaths went up from 50,000 a year to 1 million a year and stayed there for 40 years. 40 million people, nearly all of them children, died of malaria solely and simply because DDT had been banned for no good scientific reason or environmental reason whatsoever. And it was only after every single one of the people responsible for that dismal, murderous decision had retired or died that on September the 15th, 2006, Dr. Arata Kochi of the World Health Organization said, normally in this field, science comes second and politics comes first. But we will now take a stand on the science and the data, and he ended that ban on DDT and made it once again the front line of defense against the malaria mosquito, after pressure from me, among others. But the left, the environmental left, the intolerant, communistic, narrow-minded faction that does not care how many children it kills, is
Hold on, why don't y'all care about children? How come y'all care about how many people y'all kill? Y'all left this unscientific, want to kill. I'm sorry. All right, I'm gonna get serious. Serious stuff. I couldn't resist that one.
Campaigning once again for DDT to be banned because they do not want children to be born in the third world. They want as much of humanity as possible, it sometimes seems to me, to be wiped off the face of the planet. And there is a better way to control population than to withdraw the one effective agent against one of the world's biggest killers. And that is to raise the standard of living of the poorest. That has long been a moral imperative. Since the time of our blessed Lord himself, it has been a moral imperative that we help our lords the sick and our lords the poor. And we work for them, and we raise them up, and we make them healthy, and we make them wealthy. Because if we make them wealthy, then their populations will stabilize. This is something that every demographer knows perfectly well. Make the population wealthy, and it stabilizes. Keep it poor, and it will continue to increase. Make it poor if it was wealthy, and it will start to increase again. And if the environmental left were really serious about saving the planet from a huge CO2 footprint, which, as I shall show you, doesn't matter at all, then the first thing they would do is pursue policies that would not, as the extinction of 5/6 of your economy would do, make you poor, but they would be trying to make everybody rich.
Okay, so the process, got the process. Let's process what they're talking about. So he made some interesting points. Y'all daggone leftist people, y'all just hate kids in tropical places. So he made some interesting points. Let's hear the argument out. Got another video that kind of talks a little more in detail. That one was from 2013. And this is what John Stossel and Richard Trent. Let's see what they're talking about. But just let's let it make the case, and we'll kind of discuss it.
Don't you hate mosquitoes? I do. Ooh, when I hear that sound, my skin crawls. So when I was a kid, I was thrilled when the government sent those trucks that sprayed, well, whatever it was they sprayed, it was going to get rid of the bugs. Sometimes we were so excited we ran toward the cloud of white smoke. We were so eager to be mosquito-free. Now, of course, we know that what they were spraying was the evil DDT. Look how much of it they sprayed. Much more, it turns out, than was needed to kill mosquitoes. And yet, none of us worried. We breathed in tons of the stuff. It ended up in our food and water. And what happened? Practically nothing happened. Despite what you've heard, there's been no increase in cancers. Nobody died. No evidence that people got sick from all that extra DDT. Today, the prevailing myth is that DDT is a horrible chemical that should be banned. We think that because of a best-selling book that said DDT would soon kill all America's birds, not to mention give us all kinds of cancer. Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, won lots of awards. It's still used today as a text in environmental studies classes. Al Gore's been called the Rachel Carson of global warming. It's a good comparison because it turns out that Silent Spring is filled with nonsense, too. In her book, she suggests DDT gave one woman leukemia, but the woman was diagnosed with leukemia just 2 months after using DDT. Real scientists laugh at the book, but real scientists don't write bestsellers that influence people. Silent Spring made the DDT myth so powerful that DDT is now banned in much of the world. This doesn't hurt us in America because we already used it to eradicate malaria. Malaria used to kill 5,000 Americans per year. Now it's the ban on DDT that kills people. Richard Trent just wrote a book about that titled The Excellent Powder. Excellent Powder?
Excellent powder indeed. The title comes from a speech that Winston Churchill made in 1944 when he was talking about how the Allies were using the excellent DDT powder to rid the Pacific and European theaters of war of disease like typhus and like malaria.
But wasn't it giving people breast cancer and hormone disruption?
Absolutely not. There have been so many studies over the years that try and find an association between DDT and some human health some human health harm. All of these studies are weak, statistically insignificant, and they don't comply with the most basic epidemiologic criteria that we need to prove cause and effect. We're mixing up association with cause of harm. So no, I mean, there is no evidence that this is harmful to humans.
And today, if you take a fraction of what we sprayed in America and what I breathed in, and you put it on the side of a hut in Africa, that protects them from malaria?
Yeah, what happens is a tiny amount of DDT is sprayed on the inside walls of a house, and it lasts there for about a year. And what it does is it just keeps the mosquitoes outside the house. It works as a great spatial repellent.
Keeps them outside for how long? 6 months?
For over 6 months, up to a year. It's a great way of protecting people from mosquito bites.
And yet some of these African countries say, no, we don't want this stuff.
Well,
we know it's evil, you're poisoning us.
Well, not true. Many African countries have been trying to use DDT. Some do, and luckily now the US government is supporting some of those. Through the President's Malaria Initiative, they're actually supporting some of them. They changed policies from when you last looked at this some years ago. But one country in particular, Uganda, tried to use DDT, but they were so frightened that even the tiniest residues of DDT that may come onto some produce would lead to trade barriers and reject their produce from Europe, that they had to stop their program. It's so absurd. They were worried about DDT residues on tobacco. DDT that we know does not cause cancer on a product that does cause cancer. We should be worried about tobacco residues on the DDT.
And I should point out, this is not just between Rachel Carson and you. The World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control support indoor spraying.
Right, as does the US Agency for International Development. They do so because it works and because we have an emergency in malaria, and we need to use the best tools that we can.
Now, I should say, we asked the scaremongers who keep telling these DDT stories to come on this program to debate him, and they would not. Groups like Pesticide Action Network, Greenpeace, the NRDC, the group of lawyers, World Wildlife Fund. I mean, I think these people are murderers. If 1 million people die of malaria a year, these so-called environmentalists kill people.
Well, I mean, murder's a strong word. But what we do know is happening is that there's enormous pressure on governments and even on the WHO to stop the use of this chemical, and instead to promote some of these bizarre so-called environmentally friendly solutions, like planting trees around houses that may or may not repel mosquitoes, maybe using fish that may or may not eat mosquito larvae. These are some of the most naive...
And they pay for drugs to treat malaria once people get it.
That's fine, and we should be doing that, but that doesn't mean... there's no evidence that treating alone is a legitimate way of controlling malaria. We need both. We need prevention and treatment. But to try and foist these so-called environmentally friendly solutions is ridiculous. These are most half-baked ideas. And in fact, it's insulting to public health professionals that need effective chemical solutions. This is an insect-borne disease, and we need good insecticides. And they campaign against all insecticide use.
World Malaria Day comes 3 days after Earth Day.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a Malaria Day if it weren't for Earth Day.
Right. You know, the anti-insecticide bias, the fear-mongering about DDT, and now that is about other insecticides as well, means that malaria control programs are left with fewer tools in their arsenal to fight this disease. And it doesn't just lead to the rise in malaria cases 20, 30, 40 years ago. It means that in the future now we have fewer insecticides and almost no investment in new tools. DDT is a great insecticide, but we need new chemicals. And there's just been no investment whatsoever in the search for these new tools.
Ooh, okay, it's getting delicious, people. It's okay, all right. So, you murderers, stop it! I see you. All right, you murderers on the comment section. Y'all stop murdering. My goodness, y'all getting all excited. We just let them make a case, and we're gonna listen. Let's just listen. And so that was some of the case on the other side. And now let's kind of listen. Sister Reva is flipping out. No, just so listen. Hold on. I know y'all Y'all about to hang me. Listen, this is how we do things in the intellectual world, right? You know, when we let somebody make the case and we, go to people on both sides of the debate and let's listen. Let's let them make the case and we can, we'll have at it. I have some opinions, but I want to see what y'all think as well as I'd like to. Let's listen to Rachel. I know it's a little hard to listen to. I know. Chill, girl. Reba, calm down. Somebody go hug Reba. Reba, stop it. She's posted what I posted. Buddha. I saw that. She said Bill Gates porn. Okay, all right. Again, we try to educate the left and the right, right? When the right says something, you go to somebody on the left and somebody intelligent on the left, and you let them respond. And then when the left says something, you go to somebody intelligent on the right. This is what we're doing. So let's do it. Now let's listen to Rachel for a minute. Somebody hold Reba. Everybody give Reba some love. Everybody put some hearts up for Reba. Reba, we love you, girl. Go nowhere. Just hang on. We just let them make a case. Let's listen to Rachel.
Pesticides weren't always thought to be harmful. To the contrary. In 1947, Time magazine carried an advertisement claiming DDT was good for people, homes, and farms. It took 20 years before scientists realized how dangerous it was.
It begins with the war-born development of DDT. This diabolical weapon of modern science saved millions of humans, but killed billions of insects. Man, with this newly discovered force, has at long last gained the upper hand in our age-old struggle. Just like these mosquito larvae, it came from laboratories where top scientists from famous universities and from industrial and government organizations collaborated to develop something new and different. They succeeded. They perfected Pestroy, the most effective weapon man has ever wielded against insects. To begin with, this new pest killer is a DDT preparation. We realize what that means. Once a bug comes in contact with DDT, he's lost. All he has to do is just walk on any Pestroy-treated surface. DDT is absorbed through the feet and spreads throughout the insect's entire nervous system. The effect is disastrous. DDT seems to literally drive bugs crazy. But not for long. DDT next paralyzes, then kills. In both its forms, powder and liquid, Pestroy means doomsday to us insects. For this new insect destroyer contains a lot of DDT, not just a little. Its DDT content is even higher than government specifications. But the really sure kill feature of this insect killer isn't simply that it contains DDT, it's the way that it makes sure that bugs get the DDT that's in it. The same deadly effectiveness of the liquid form is found in the Pestroy powder.
With the possibility of a serious infantile paralysis epidemic, health authorities...
I'm looking for Rachel. She's...
Public health departments staged demonstrations to convince the public of DDT's effectiveness and safety. Enthusiasm for the chemical knew no bounds, and few were questioning the wisdom of such use. Public places and private backyards were being treated whether people liked it or not. In 1957, planes sprayed a Massachusetts bird sanctuary owned by Olga Huckins, a friend of Carson's. In fury and desperation, Huckins told her what had happened. The birds showed all the symptoms typical of DDT poisoning. Huckins knew that the planes would be back in spite of her protests. She asked Carson for help. Carson later remembered how the thought of a spring silent of birdsong had moved her to action.
It was your personal letter to me that started it all. In it, you told what had happened and begged me to find someone in Washington who could help. It was in the course of finding that someone that I realized I must write the book.
We have to remember that children born today are exposed to these chemicals from birth, perhaps even before birth. Now, what is going to happen to them in adult life as a result of that exposure? We simply don't know.
This is one of the nation's best sellers, first printed on September 27, 1962.
In her groundbreaking book, Silent Spring, Rachel Carson jolted a prosperous post-war America, a country confident that science and technology were leading the way to a future in which disease and hunger could be overcome. In no small part thanks to a new generation of powerful pesticides. But in Silent Spring, Carson warned that progress had a price.
These sprays, dusts, and aerosols are now applied almost universally to farms, gardens, forests, and homes. Non-selective chemicals that have the power to kill every insect, the good and the bad, to still the song of birds and the leaping of fish in the streams. All this, though the intended target may be only a few weeds or insects.
Through sheer determination, Carson participated in an hour-long CBS News documentary on pesticides.
CBS reports The Silent Spring of Rachel Carson.
Which...
All right, so we want to stop there. Okay. Okay. So let's think about this. Let's Grace said the music was, I know it was soothing, wasn't it? The bee was dying. It wasn't the bee, it was a fly. It was just dying. And they had a little soft music. Oh, you know, and yeah, bees, flies were harmed in the making of that film. That was a real fly. So, all right, let's try to deal with this one a little bit. All right. So I get the case that they're making. And little soothing swamp music. All right. Does DDT cause cancer? So I guess they're saying that no, it doesn't. I'm a skeptic. Do I believe that? I don't think they know. I don't think they know. I think that, well, first of all, I know that we really don't know the long-term effects of any synthetic chemicals on the environment or the human body, period. We really don't even know all of the systems that these chemicals can affect. So walking through the thought process here, I'm trying to think this out and be fair and like, you know, so this idea that nobody wants to debate him, I don't think that that's realistic. I'm not sure who John Stossel is. I've heard the name before. I don't follow politics, so I really don't know. Sounds like I don't know if he's a shill or he's some sort of, you know, Bill Gates type person. So in general, I mean, man has always been working on this case that there's something wrong with nature, right? There's something wrong with your body, that you need his products, you need his chemicals, we need to fix nature. Nature doesn't work the way it should. Nature doesn't work right for us. And so I don't believe in this concept that nature is broken. I know that it's not. It's been working pretty good for a couple billion years now. The human body, in other mammals and organs, hearts, all the things that evolved on this planet, they've all been working pretty well in other creatures as well. So I don't believe the human body is broken. So I don't like that case of having to sell something, to break nature or kill something in nature to try to solve a problem for man. I have an issue with that. I don't like the fact that obviously 1 million people per year die of malaria. And then there's dengue fever and there's a lot of other things. A quick understanding, though, is that so malaria, and the intended target is to kill the mosquito, right? But you're going to kill millions of other different types of bugs, right? Frogs, dragonflies, bees. We already have an issue with the neonics, right? We're killing off our bee populations. And it beckons a couple questions, right? Are we killing off the mosquito, who actually isn't the inventor of malaria, right? Malaria comes from a parasite that's not even the mosquito. So you know how I am with the root cause anyway. Like, we're not actually hitting the root cause of the problem. They're going after the mid-tier. They're killing the mosquito because the mosquito, it can pick up the parasite and it can transmit it through blood to blood to blood to blood. So you're not even going after the root problem. You're going after the mid-tier issue, the mosquito. You're blaming the mosquito for what it didn't do. There are a lot of cases for the transference of DNA through mosquito bites, right? Like, it's part of how evolution has been designed to work. I have questions in my mind as to whether or not human beings can actually eradicate a parasite, right? Like, the idea that you can spray an area and kill the mosquitoes to a point where the parasite slowly dies off over time. I don't really think that's realistic. I think we're a little grandiose in our ideas there. I think we got a little hubris mixed in. You know how small a parasite is? A parasite that's been here for billions of years. So you can kill off all the mosquitoes and the mosquito population come back, but the parasite that causes malaria could still be in the environment. So these are the questions that I have. Obviously, the bee argument, because, the whole bee thing. Food is kind of delicious. We've kind of gotten used to that. We do like to kill off things we don't understand, and I have a problem with that in terms of, look at the wolf, right? You guys, if you've never seen the case of the wolf in, was it Yellowstone Park, where they killed off the wolf, and we had no idea all of the ecosystems the wolf actually affected. And so when they reintroduced the wolf, what they found out, there's a good video about it, but they reintroduced the wolf and they found out that the wolf kept the deer away from the lakes and the rivers, right? And so the deer and they had no fear of wolves, and so they would sit at the river all day, drink, and they would eat and have no fear and just relax, and they would eat away the underbrush from the sides of the rivers, which actually prevented small mammals from getting to the side of the river. So it hurt mammal populations. Also, the vegetation, the fish used to fry, fish used to hide. So certain species of fish they didn't go extinct, but they died back because of it. And so bringing the wolf back brought that fear in the deer, and the deer stayed away from the sides of it. And so they spread throughout the park a little more, which and because of the underbrush and the flowering, the butterflies didn't come. The bees didn't come to the water. And because they didn't come to the water, they didn't pollinate. So you didn't have the wildflowers all over as you did before. So there are a lot of things, like everything's all interconnected. And so one of the things, I won't go through the whole story. You could look up wolf in Yellowstone Park to get the details. But the thing that bothers me is that, we're making a change and we're deciding to kill something. Actually, that's not true. We're deciding to kill millions, if not billions, of other creatures and microbiology and things. And we really don't know how these ecosystems all feed together. And so one of my greatest fears is when we do things and we actually don't know the result of them. I mean, we do things as kind of a knee-jerk reaction. Remember, anytime you jerk your knee, you're a jerk. You don't want to do knee-jerk reactions. You want to study something. You want to get the facts and then make an intelligent decision based on those facts. And so we don't even know the facts. We know that DDT kills various bugs. The bugs are eaten by the frogs. The bugs are eaten by the fish. The birds eat the bugs. The humans eat the birds, or the humans eat things that eat the birds. The humans eat things that eat the frogs, and it kind of all feeds together, especially in the tropical environments. And so these are like really, really interesting questions I think you got to ask before you go down this route of, should we make DDT free and available? I think someone asked, were they spraying DDT today? Yes, they are. In different places, they've gotten the ability to spray it. Another case is a scary thing. America loves chemicals, y'all. America loves its chemicals. And so the idea that America actually bans a chemical, that might mean it's the worst thing in the universe, but that's kind of my prejudice. But so another thing, the transference of DNA. And so mosquitoes are transferring DNA. We know that DNA now, when it comes in contact with other DNA, it actually picks up genes and information. And so part of how evolution occurred was mosquitoes spread DNA from species to species to species. And if this species learned how to fight this, it shared that, and it learned how to fight this disease and knew how to do this. fish that couldn't make that, what is it, the antifreeze type blood where they could actually freeze and reanimate. They learned how to do that. I'm not sure mosquitoes bite fish, but it's a case, it's a case of trading DNA and how things learn from each other and sharing that DNA all around. And so those are my concerns. Also, we're changing a system that's been working pretty well for a couple billion years. You know, the case of being concerned with the Africans and the South Americans, I'm not going to touch that one. Now we're worried about the Africans and the South Americans, and it's not about making money selling. I think about the GMO mosquito, right? Like, I always wonder, why are these things coming up? What is this stuff about? And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what if it's not even about DDT? What if this effort really is about making the case for using technology to kill off nature because it's a good idea? Like, it's not even about, I forgot what the term is. One of my smart friends can tell you, but where they throw something at you and you think it's about that. It's not really about that. It's about something else. So we know that they've been trying to release these GMO mosquitoes for a long time. Perhaps they're trying to walk us in to thinking that modifying nature for man in such a catastrophic way is a good thing. And really, they're just like walking us into that belief system that this is a good idea. Now, this is a bad product. Maybe it's not DDT, but we have the GMO mosquito. It'll do the same thing. And so they kind of walk you, it's a debating tactic where they kind of walk you into believing something you didn't even believe because you were fighting the other thing, right? Some sort of form of gaslighting or something like that. Thank you, Cindy. Something around that. Other things that come to mind is DDT safe? Does it alter DNA? Doing some peeking around. I bumped around. Let me see. Where is my? Right here. Kind of doing some peeking around, looking at DDT and what is DDT. So DDT, and they keep calling it an organic compound. It is not an organic compound. DDT is definitely a synthetic compound. My friends already know where I stand on synthetic compounds, right? So synthetic compound, and I'll try to sum it up real quickly. A synthetic compound is an alien compound, right? It is something that has never existed on this planet, ever. Right? So they can say, got vitamin C over here, and they synthesize vitamin C. That's not vitamin C, right? Like, it's similar to vitamin C. It's vitamin C-ish. They always put an ish on it, I-S-H, but they won't say that on your vitamin pill pack. It'll just say vitamin C, but it's not actually vitamin C. Certainly not at a compound level, and certainly not at the atomic level or any level below that. And this is like the hubris of man in thinking the technology we have right now tells us everything we need to know, and every 10 years we find out how little we actually knew about it. And so synthesized compounds have never existed, and that largely is what side effects are. When you take these things, your body's never seen them. Your heart, your liver, your lungs, your immune system, the microbiology, all in your body, they've never seen this stuff ever on the history of the planet. So you might as well almost had gone to Mars, picked up some mud, yeah, because it's mud on Mars. They're lying. It's water, it's mud, it's all that stuff. You might as well just stick your finger in some Mars mud and put it in your mouth because it is an alien compound. So I'm not on the synthetic compound part. That kind of scares me. So walking through, you can and you can go to Wikipedia. I kind of mostly trust Wikipedia. There were some things that, went down here, kind of scared me a little bit. So it's not. The thing that hit me hard was over here. You guys know how I am with epigenetics, right? And this is why, we get down into these epigenetic conversations, right? So the way epigenetics works, right? It looks at the environment and not just at cell creation, but actually during cell life. It determines through its environment. I guess it's a long story. I have to say the story. I kind of got to say the story a little bit. Well, let me show this to you first. So down here at the bottom of the page, it talks about how, and I'll talk about epigenetics in a second, but it talks about how certain species alter their DNA and they modify to be able to deal with DDT. And so they're seeing that in species. And so the idea that there is no epigenetic response to DDT is insanity, right? If species in the environment, if their DNA is reacting to it and they're modifying and they're mutating their DNA to actually deal with it, then it means it does invoke epigenetics. It is something that will modify your DNA. And so a real big question is, do you really want to modify your DNA? Do they know what it's going to modify your DNA to? Have they actually tested that? So this idea that it's safe and it doesn't cause cancer, to me, it's not holding water because there's a lot of pieces that aren't really mapping up to what this man just said. So if there is some sort of, okay, so epigenetics, I wanted to show you that. So what is epigenetics? I mean, real simply, long time ago, not long time, in a galaxy far, far away, not that far, the scientists got a lot of money to map the human genome, right? And so they mapped the human genome, they found there are 26,000 genes, and the whole point was to make this superhuman, right? We can make blue people, we can make super soldiers, they can go murder, kill people a lot easier because that's where a lot of the money usually comes from, lying to the military, or telling them that you can make all this stuff. We can merge monkey DNA with humans, make big ape monkeys, people, you know, Russia did that, that's crazy, but anyway, we don't go there. So when they mapped the human genome, they found out there were 26,000 genes, they figured they could just flip a gene and things would be okay, and they would flip the gene and the gene would flip back. They flipped the gene would flip back. And they couldn't figure out why in the heck the gene would flip back. Turns out there's something called epigenetics that nobody knows a whole lot about, right? So in terms of it's not matter, it's not energy, and if it is, it's something that we actually can't test. But what we know is cells determine the genes to be flipped through this epigenetic thing based on their environment. And so when you put anything in your environment, and this is the case for taking synthetic drugs, eating herbicides and pesticides on your food, when you eat those things, every cell that's being created at that time in your body, it's looking at the environment and it's determining what genes to flip. As an example, if you had DDT, and this is an example, I'm not a microbiologist, I play one on Facebook. So I don't want anybody to be confused. I just read a lot, and one of my jobs in corporate America, I was a BS analyst. My goal was to spot BS from engineers and say, nope, that doesn't make any sense, reviewing data, blah, blah. Anyway, so at that cell creation time, if you've got this body drenched with DNA, the frog that you just sprayed, the frog is determining, oh my goodness, wow, this universe is full of DDT. What in the heck am I supposed to do? Well, I don't need to fight cancer later in life, and I can turn off the leukemia genes, and I can turn off that cardiovascular, because I don't need any of that. We're going to die in 5 years at this toxic level, right? And that's a simple explanation of epigenetics, but this is what your body does. It determines, based on what's around the cell, the environment, what in the world to do in terms of what genes to flip. So when you eat all of these drugs and you're eating this non-organic food and these pesticides and DDTs being sprayed in the air, you're actually modifying DNA. And it's not a dumb random thing. They'll say it random flips genes. No, it's not a random flipping of genes. Something, some sort of cellular intelligence that we don't understand is actually altering the DNA. And so I'm kind of making this case, and I don't want to make it a long, long argument, but is it wise to spray DDT in an environment? Based on everything I'm looking at, I can't, okay, let's be fair. Let's be fair. People are dying, right? Let's keep it real as possible. People are dying. I don't believe that the West wants to go save all these people in the tropical jungles. I personally believe that they're just trying to sell more chemicals. The question comes to mind, is this the best solution? Is this the only solution? And what I will pose as an argument, that if you really, really care about people who live in tropical environments, you ever seen this? I don't know if this is something you haven't seen before. Oh my goodness, hold on. This is a house in a greenhouse. This is a real house. This is actually, where's this at? I forgot. This is up north somewhere. And so this is a real house. And I suspect that there are a lot of solutions that can protect people from mosquitoes that we could deploy. So if we're at a place where we're deciding that we want to help people, like this in arguments, I really like to look at what is your intent. If your intent is to save lives, do we have any other ideas that could actually help to save lives? And the first one I'm thinking about is if you had, so greenhouses are really cheap, y'all. I don't know if y'all know this, but you can buy a greenhouse for a couple hundred to a couple $1,000. I'm not sure how much it costs to spray DDT across wide areas of jungle to destroy all the mosquitoes you can find. I would like to see some sort of cost analysis as to what it would take to give greenhouses to these people that you want to spray this. Can we protect the environment until we actually understand the environment before we spray everything? That would probably be one of my first questions. And of course, people have to leave the houses. They got to go somewhere. So if you really love people, I don't know if you guys see, these are actually pretty cool. These are these mosquito suits. I don't like no mosquitoes, so give me a mosquito suit. A friend of mine used to sell these, but it's a complete mosquito suit, bodysuit. Like when you go out the house, you can wear a complete thing. They don't cost much. They're very, very cheap. So if the intent actually is to save lives, perhaps we look at something like that. Another thing that I think about is, a bullfrog. You know what a bullfrog can eat 1,000 mosquitoes a night. I could actually see where you actually could have aerated pools of whatever, water, obviously, but koi ponds, frog ponds, whatever you have in community centers and areas. And what you actually do is you seed them with bullfrog tadpoles. And when you do that, you put a solar light on the pond at nighttime. And guess what happens? All the mosquitoes come to the light. Guess what the frogs do? Nature's a funny thing. Nature has its own pesticides. They eat the mosquitoes. I look at things like dragonflies. Guess what dragonfly larvae eat? Guess what its #1 food is? Mosquito larvae. So there are a lot of things in the environment that could hold back the population. Thank you, Sister Gina. Bats, bat houses. And so I think in terms of if the goal is to actually save human life, I think that there are a lot of other ways we know we can do that without spraying what we know is a carcinogen, something that causes cancer, something that causes a mutation of genes, which is what cancer is. We know that it is absolutely a carcinogen from the fact that it does have an epigenetic cell DNA response. So what the guy said in that video is completely untrue. So, and then on top of that, there's the botanist argument, right? So a lot of people don't really know this, and this comes to light when you look at plants like cannabis, right? Plants all make a natural pesticide, right? And that natural pesticide usually is in the form of a gas, and they expel this when the insect lands on it. What's the long-term effects of killing off all of these insects all across this tropical area, and now these bugs aren't landing on the plants? You guys remember that movie? It was a good documentary. My movies are documentaries to me. It was called Medicine Man. And it was about how the pharmaceutical companies are basically flocking themselves to the jungle to find out what these shamans know, to find out what plants they use to heal what and what bugs land on. And well, what they found out is that a lot of the bugs pooping on the plants, landing on the plants. And I think in that movie, they were talking about a particular ant that helped the plant make these compounds. But the point is, we don't know any of this, and we know all of this is true to a degree. We don't know about what bugs and what plants and how it all works together in those relationships, but these are reasons to have caution, right? And to look at some other ideas other than spraying DDT. I'm not a big chemical guy, and mainly because we don't understand the human body enough yet to answer those questions. And I think we as a species, we have this bug phobia, right? We have this idea that we can modify the world and modify nature and make it better. And I'm just curious if anybody, and I could be wrong, but has there ever been an example of humanity killing off something in nature and making nature better. I don't know that there was one. Another thing I think about is malaria, right? So malaria, it's something that over time your body, your immune system can handle, right? So not everybody who gets malaria dies. In fact, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, most people who get malaria don't die, right? Like most people who get Zika don't die. But you can make a whole lot of money fear-mongering and get people to be scared of this thing. So I asked the question, you know, what does malaria do in the body of someone who's malnourished in some of these poor countries, as opposed to someone who has a very strong immune system? You know, would malaria kill them if they had a very strong immune system? Is one of the solutions to make sure people have fresh food, healthy food, diverse food. One of the things about the Western environment or the Western world is that we have a diversity of food. And so we have a diversity of different types of fruits and vegetables and compounds and things we can eat. So a lot of us who eat those things have very strong immune systems. And most of it, some of us don't get sick at all. And some of us might get sick for a day, but we don't have the same problems with illness and disease that everybody else has. And so, so this is something that maybe needs to be studied. Now, I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. But I think there are a lot of, it's a good discussion to have because it's something that, corporations want. It was posed that we some murderers. Well, y'all some murderers. That was what he was proposing. And I think that there are a lot of other things that we can do to promote that. And yes, thank you, Sonny. Clean water is another one. We know that human beings are these hydro machines. And so it could have a lot to do with having healthy, clean drinking water. If you're not drinking clean drinking water, your immune system is off fighting a whole bunch of other things. And so instead of fighting the malaria, it's got 200 other types of things that are in billions of counts in your body that it's trying to fight. So clean water could be a big one to deal with that. Another thing I think about, I got a couple things. I think a lot. My brain, I've drank coffee in the evening. It's a probably bad thing for me to do. But the Monsanto Protection Act, right? So if what you have is really, really good, you shouldn't be, if you believe in what you have, you believe your thing doesn't hurt or kill people, why would you need to buy a law so that people can't sue you, right? And I'm pointing right now at, the Monsanto Protection Act, the DARK Act, as well as the Vaccine Defense Fund, right? If you believe in your product and your product doesn't hurt and kill people, then why do you need to be protected from lawsuit? So right off, I'm a skeptic when it comes to DDT and Monsanto and these games, because if you need to be protected from damage that your product does, you're telling me you don't believe in your product. You're telling me how dangerous, like what totally did it for me, and I was never a Monsanto guy, but what totally took me off of non-organic food was when they tried to pass that law. When they passed the law, when they got to a point where it made sense to pay millions of dollars to politicians to protect them from the people that are eating their product. Think about that. Chew on that. And so I think we get lost in hubris. I think as a species, we like to call things science. I don't like the way he posed the debate. He said, well, nobody wants to debate me, and you can't prove that it's harmful. To me, that's a reverse argument. When you want to introduce your product to my body and to other human beings, then it's not on, I lost my swamp sounds. It's not on us to prove that your product is dangerous. I like my swamp sounds, so I want my swamp back. Hold on, y'all bear with me. It's not up to us to prove your product is damaging. Right? If you want to spray this on children, you want to spray it on the things they're eating for lunch, it's up to you to prove that that product is safe. It's not up for us to prove that it's harmful. You have to make the case that it's safe. And this is where the United States and the West, we have things back. I'm not sure it's mostly West, but I know it's the United States in terms of our chemical laws. They don't do any testing, and I think that was due to Reagan. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But as a chemical company, you can sell this. You can put it in a product, food, whatever you want, send it out. And it's not an issue until somebody gets sick. Then they got to prove that they got sick. And then you get sued, and then they'll pull the thing off of the market. But so I'm against that reverse argument from that perspective. Oh, goodness. And then there's the whole what we don't know that we don't know that we don't know because we don't know, so we couldn't possibly know, of just leave the environment alone because the environment actually works really well without us attacking it. We always want to go and defend ourselves from them. There are always some others. There's always some bugs coming. There's always something that we got to get. There's something always trying to kill us. And I think we got to get out of this mindset that nature is our enemy. It's not. We are natural creatures. We are biological creatures. You know, outside of the whole epigenetic response that our bodies do, what about all the other animals? You know, what about all the different food chains it feeds down? What is it? And those epigenetics, the genes get passed on to your children. What is it going to do in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 generations? I think there are a lot more questions probably than answers when it comes to spraying more DDT in the environment. But I think just based on the simple stuff I've looked into in the past 45 minutes, Sister Robin, I think that this is a really bad idea. I think that there is enough information. If there's enough information in 45 minutes, just kind of taking a peek at something, this idea that the West is stingy and we use DDT for ourselves and we refuse to give it to the third world because we want them to die. There could be some plausibility in that, you know, only because we do genocide. We've done it, and it's well documented and proven, and whistleblowers have come out, and CIA released document classified, Freedom of Information Act. We know we are land grabbers. So the idea that maybe we held it back because we thought it could help them and we wanted them to die, I think that's possible. But why it's banned today is because it's extremely dangerous as a chemical. And we have no idea what that actually is going to do. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Let me scan back and kind of look at some comments. Yep, I love me some bats. The spray to kill mosquitoes, supposedly spreading Zika, was doing more harm when they were spraying it all over Florida. Right. And Sister Donnell, and we found out that that was a lie. That Zika actually didn't cause microcephaly. It had to do with the chemicals. It had to do with the synthetic chemicals that we were pouring. They were pouring in the river system down there to kill off some bacteria, and the people were the pregnant mothers were drinking the water, and that was causing microcephaly. You know, the sick thing about that, Donnell, is that they knew that at the time when they took the trillions of dollars of U.S. tax money and gave it to the pharmaceutical companies to make a vaccine. They actually knew that at the time because the doctors in Brazil said, no, it's not Zika. It's what you're putting in our water. The doctors already suspected that, but nobody listened because Americans believe anything they hear. It's easy to get them running from some mosquitoes. All you got to say is, oh, there's a new mosquito that's out. And if we don't do something about it, you know, in America, they love fear. And so, yeah, and that could be part of it. So I think the screen houses might be a better idea than greenhouses, since greenhouses would be very hot. That's true, Deborah. They can be, you know, and they can have openings on the top. They got the bevels to cool them off. And we could go into geothermal cooling, which I'd love to talk about, but that's like another whole topic. So there are different ways to do that. Greenhouses, you can modify your climate with them. They've got the cloths that go over top. But the whole point is keeping the mosquitoes out so people can sleep safe at night. But it's more of a posing of an argument back to them that, hey, if you really do want to save lives, if this is really your intent, then how about you use a technology that's guaranteed to work as opposed to something that we just don't understand. And so I suspect it's really not about saving 1 million lives a year, but it's just about making money. Deborah said, but honestly, I want to know how long has malaria been a problem in these areas, and what has been done in the past about it. Well, I know that people who live in those areas have significantly less problem with malaria than the gringos that go into those areas, right? When we go into that area, our body hasn't been bitten by these mosquitoes since we were children, right? So we don't have the immunity to fight this stuff off as good as they do. So we go there and get sick. As far as I know, this might actually be us. I think somebody should do some research into those million people who are dying. Are they us? Are they gringos going to the foreign land? Or are they people who actually live there? Because if you think about it, as a baby, when you're born in an environment, you're getting bit by these mosquitoes. And your white blood cells, because your stem cells are off the hook, and as a baby, and you're learning to be immune to things in that environment, and you're learning how to fight off malaria. And so I wonder who this is actually really for. Like, what is this really about? Did they find some zircon or coltan in a tropical place and they want to kill off the mosquitoes so they can send gringo miners in to go mine it? I don't know. Sister Jenny said, there you go thinking again. I know. My brain, it'll do that sometimes. What's that, Robin? Says, we collect rainwater in drums, then collect the mosquitoes that lay their eggs and feed them to the fish. Since we started doing this, we don't have any more problems on our deck with mosquitoes. Yeah, and you know what, Rob? And it's a great idea. Putting a little, like I said, a light over a pond, an aerator. Mosquitoes don't like moving water. The larvae, they can't stand it. They've got mosquito fish you can put in there. We used to put little fish in there, and they'll wipe them out. But as long as it's an aerated, healthy water source and fountain, the dragonflies come and they take care of it. Nature already knows what it's doing. And, I think we just have to cultivate environments just like our bodies that's conducive to nature, and we don't have the problems. And that's how we get sustainable, right? Spraying a synthetic chemical all over the jungle just really isn't sustainable. Hopefully that helped that debate that you're having, Robin. I'm just, these are kind of my thoughts. Yeah, and so, I thought it was easier to just post a quick video and kind of answer the question as to typing something massively long that I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't want to write it, but, those are kind of my thoughts. Let me see if there are other solutions. Sister Jeannie said, just another way to exterminate people. And it could be that too, right? We can definitely, and that's not conspiracy. Right? We know that we did this in Vietnam. We know that we did it. Didn't we do it in North Korea and a lot of other places? We sprayed the jungles. And of course, we sprayed them at amounts that we knew would kill people, as opposed to spray them at amounts that just would. And oh my gosh, and I won't go, I get emotional. I don't even like to even talk about it. But you start to look at some of the kids in Vietnam that are still dying today from that. In America, that's on us. We need to clean that up. We did that. You still have deformed children that are coming out today because of us. Gina said, I make an organic essential oil spray, peppermint, clove, lemongrass. It works. Yes. Also use it with pups for flea and ticks. It really works. Yes, it does. And you know something else, Gina? You know what I found out that works? Coconut oil. Coconut oil keeps mosquitoes off of you. Some basic lotions did. Like, the whole point that basil is a great companion planter for like tomatoes and a lot of other plants is because it emits a scent where the bugs can't find the plant they want to eat because there's such a strong odor that prevents it. Some of y'all I like to wear all that cologne and perfume. Just stand behind them. When the wind blows, stand behind the people that just bathe in their perfume and cologne. And the bugs won't find you. Mosquitoes won't find you at all. So we can send some perfume companies over there. But lotion actually does that. You can actually hide, like there's deterring the mosquito, and then there's also hiding from it. And so I'm sure there are essential oils and creams and things which actually could be a great business for a lot of these areas with struggling economies in growing and making the oils and selling them to those areas where, yeah, you leave the house, you kind of coat yourself with it. But also, giving people an opportunity to move somewhere else, right? You don't want the million people to die. There's also that option too. You can let them move next to you, right? People like to come to the Western countries. Maybe if you really do care about their lives so much, how about we let them move from these dangerous environments and let them live with us? So I think all good questions that you could ask somebody who's making that debate. It said, yeah, the big red flag is that the stuff stays in the environment. It does, and we don't know the long-term effects. It drips right down through the soil into the aquifers. We pump it back up and drink it back down. And of course, if they legalize it for these foreign nations, of course they're going to legalize it for the United States. I personally don't want to chase the mosquito. I remember as kids when the truck used to come through, spray it, we'd run behind the truck. Yay, mosquito spray! And the truck driver slow down just so, you know, we could run behind and have a lot of fun, breathe it all in. I don't know how the hell we're still alive. And hopefully our DNA didn't flip too much that we're handing to our kids. But then again, and that's another thing to think about, you know, we sprayed all this stuff way back when, and we are like one of the only nations that has this super ridiculous outbreak of chronic illnesses. We're making so many chronic illnesses now, we can't even name them all. Half the doctors can't even keep up with. My father died from a disease. Most doctors don't even know what the hell it is because they keep making these new names for all these new illnesses. And somebody maybe should ask the question, maybe it's because we sprayed all the crap in the air and in the ground and it just keeps circulating back through the water and we're eating it again and the plants taking up, we're eating the plants. You know, good reasons to stay away. It's a long term. That's a good one, Jenny. It's a long term destruction to the environment of this stuff. Sister Reva, you okay, girl? What you say? You're not jumping off of no cliffs. Calm down. We good. We like to look at all the information and then we'll talk about it. You said, dang right, they have to prove it safely to us. Yes, that's the case for everything. I think if we can get to a place where they got to prove it safe first, you know how much better this world would be? If we told them, you know, well, we're going to go free the children and invade a country. Okay, can you prove that more children are being harmed than your bombs are going to kill? If you can't prove it, maybe you shouldn't go. You've just negated your whole purpose because you're not really going to save no children. You're going to murder the children and their parents because you want to take their land and their oil. But, you know, we won't go down that road. So I think getting them to prove it up front works in many different ways. Yeah, Diane, shaking your head. Yeah, I am too. We keep going there. We got to get past this whole chemical companies. It's a good idea for them to run the world and spray stuff everywhere that nobody knows what it's going to actually end up doing. Cindy said, chemicals kill the beneficial microbial life. We need healthy soil to grow crops. Thank you, Cindy. Give you a pound. Give you sand. Cindy got your pound. Because we now know that, you know, the way plants grow, it's not by the guy pouring, you know, fertilizer in the soil. The healthiest plants on the planet are the plants that live in old growth forests and lands that are rich in microbiology. Look up Elaine Ingham from the Rodale Institute. Phenomenal. Wrote a book called Soil Food Web, co-authored it. Great. Explains that the microbiology in the soil are what make the plant so healthy. Real simple explanation. The plants grew fine before we got here. Why did they grow fine? Because on the tips of the roots of the plants, they have something called mycorrhizae fungi. That fungi actually has a symbiotic relationship with the plant. When the plant needs to make a pesticide, and I like the cannabis example because people later love their THC. So when a bug lands on the plant and it knows it needs to manufacture the THC, it doesn't do it for you. It doesn't care about you and you getting high or with a CBD oil. It doesn't care nothing about you. It does that because it is actually it's creating a gas or an oil for high dehydration or to call other insects to come and eat the bug that landed on the plant. These are all studies. A great documentary you can watch is called What Plants Think About. It's on YouTube, and there's another one, and the name escapes me. It kind of explains, you know, the intelligence that plants actually display. And so so when the plant says, okay, I need to make this compound, I need some selenium, it actually sends a signal to the mycorrhizae fungi on its root system, I need selenium. The mycorrhizae fungi will capture the next soil microbiology that are in the soil, if there is any microbiology in the soil, with the selenium, or the magnesium, or the calcium, or whatever that plant's ordering out for. It captures it, the plant's root system uptakes it, and the plant releases sugars back down through the root system for the mycorrhizae fungi. And so that's where it's a beneficial relationship. And so, long way of simply saying, if you spray DDT in the ground and you kill off all the microbes, then the fruits and the vegetables and the things that people eat in that environment aren't going to be as healthy anymore. Ooh, that was a long one. What are y'all saying? Sister Grace, this is why I always seem to feel much better when I leave the U.S. and then feel worse when I get back. Yeah, girl, because you're breathing in chemicals, you're eating chemicals, your body's saying, get the hell out of here. Oh, you know what? And this is slightly off topic. Y'all should look up, there was a good Joe Rogan podcast the other night. Anybody who's got any sort of chronic pain or chronic illnesses, Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan. It was a quick podcast explaining stem cell use for the gene treatments that they're doing in Panama. There are people who are flying down there because it's in clinical trials testing in the United States, but in Panama, they actually have doctors that are utilizing ethical stem cells for the treatment of all types of illnesses, everything from, I want to say it was cancers and spinal injuries and arthritis and different things like that. And so Mel Gibson, he was so blown away because he took his father down there, who was, I think, 92 at the time. And he was basically on his deathbed. And now he says he can't stop the guy. He got his treatments with the stem cells. And he said basically the guy's doing flips. And he's like, my dad, he got activities back he shouldn't have got back. And he said the nurses confirmed that, you know, the guy's a tent warrior. I won't go into the details of that. But he's a 100-year-old chasing women. So that's another thing to look at if you guys got anyone suffering from chronic illnesses. It was a great podcast. And Mel Gibson brought his doctor on to talk about it, to kind of share that information about some of the great things they're doing in Panama. I don't know why you made me think of that, Grace. But yeah, there's a lot of great things happening outside of the grips of the FDA. And if you're in the UK, the MDA. Those are the only ones I know. I had to deal with y'all back when I was in that pharmaceutical industry. You know, but you have to, and Panama is supposed to be a beautiful city. Never been. I'd love to get there. One of y'all should send me some plane tickets. I go to Panama. Sister Jeannie said, I always listen to what nature wants and do what it tells me, not some expert who says so. Yeah, always listen to your body. Always listen to, trust nature. Nature, she's been at her job for how many billions of years. That's why I always lean towards her. I like technology that helps nature do what it's always been doing. Maybe nature that helps it do a little more efficiency, but I have no interest in things that destroy nature to try to make it better. It makes no sense to me. Men are not that smart. That's just our hubris. Grace said, I like a lot of my African students have had malaria many times in their lives. Yeah, and in some of these places, and this is what I hear, Grace, is that, and you know better than I do, but that it's like a common cold. You know, there are certain strains that are highly dangerous, but the majority of time they get it. They don't even know. They're kind of like us with our flus and different things. And so, but again, it's this idea, we got to go save the pagans, and it's only going to cost you $100 billion to pay for it. We're going to go save some pagans. I think that's kind of what's going on. Yeah, many plants deter mosquitoes. That's true. And citronella and the different things. I haven't had tons of experience with the mosquito repellent plants. I'm sure you got to have a lot of them. You probably want to sit down from them. But there are a lot of things. Nature makes all these things to take care of us. We just don't pay attention to it. Sister Reeve, you like my setup? It looks good. Thank you, girl. I like to go places when I talk about stuff and not get bit by mosquitoes. So I preface this. I hate me some mosquitoes. I do not like mosquitoes at all. You will not catch me. And as a kid, we used to swim in the swamps and play in them. My immune system probably isn't that strong. I will not go in the swamps. But, you know, the reality is these are real topics. These are real things that we have to talk about, because when people get into these discussions, it's a good idea. I think if you talk, I have a lot of smart friends. I love it. I love it to death, because you can say stuff and I'll go back and I'll read the comments and I'm like, oh my God, how did I miss this comment? Like, this is cool, like this. And I got a link and I'll click. Y'all gonna make me crazy. As if I ain't already. What else we got? Yeah, chemicals all over. You okay, Reva? Okay, girl. I'm glad you're okay, because you were flipping out a little bit there. I know. It's taken me a little while to be calm when I listen to stuff now, but sometimes I try to be calm because I want to listen and let somebody make another case. And that's the only way I can learn something, is I have to kind of push and it's not all indoctrination. I read way too much. I need a life. My head's going to explode. But I try to sit back and listen to people before I start making that face. Sometimes I can't help it. You hear something like, what? Did he just say DDT wasn't a carcinogen? I thought we solved that. Kind of like, you just said the earth is flat? Well, hey, hang on. Wait. I got a question. And it might be. I don't know. I don't know anything. But it's the burden of proof is on them to prove it. Yeah, I'm not sure where this swamp picture's at. That's just a nice picture. I thought it was pretty. I wanted to go to the swamp. Yes, stem cell treatment, Kimberly, in Panama. Look into it. It's interesting that they're actually, and they're attempting to try to ban some of the things they're doing down there. And it's scary if you listen to the podcast, they explain that there have been no adverse effects, right? Because they're not taking a synthetic drug. They're actually taking something natural. This is actually a holistic treatment using stem cells that are found in all of our bodies. But and I know I'm gonna mess it up. The way it was explained was that the stem cell, it either emits a compound or it has an effect on the cells in the body of the area that they treat. And basically, in dummy terms, your body says, oh, damn it, I'm 20. I'm not supposed to have arthritis. And it actually starts dealing with the inflammation, right? Like you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that study they did with the mice when they did the blood transfusion, you know, the whole vampire theory, which is why I don't think vampires are a theory. I think people knew a long time ago that if you took somebody else's blood, it was the right blood type, that it would heal you in ways. They took the old mice and the young mice, they hooked them up. And the old mice was sterile, had gray hair, basically dying. They hooked it up to the blood transfusion to the young mice. And once the old mice got the young mice's stem cells, its hair started, the new hair that came in was brown. The mouse basically reversed aging. It became fertile again. And so I think they've known this for a long time. But that's what it kind of reminded. So instead of doing a blood transfusion, you're actually using the stem cells that are in that blood from a young person. And there's a company that, I guess they get the stem cells and they breed them and split and divide and all that stuff. But really interesting stuff, especially if you know someone who has a little bit of money and a chronic illness. I imagine it's not a cheap treatment, but it can't be too expensive because I know a lot of the professional fighters go to Panama to get treated. MMS has cured malaria and other illnesses. Check it out. Okay, that sounds cool, Sandy. We know there are a lot of cures for the natural things there are a lot of cures for diseases, lots of diseases. We don't have shaman anymore that are in the Western world. We have chemists posing as shaman. Alicia, you say you grow citronella every year. You take a leaf off and rub it on your skin. You can watch the bugs fly away. Okay, you know what? I'm going to give that a shot. I've actually grown citronella. I never actually utilized the leaves. I end up growing a lot of stuff. I'll get seeds and I'll grow things, and I mean to do something with them, and I don't actually get around to doing it. I got a plant growing fetish, so I had to give that a shot. I wonder, is there a citronella lotion? That actually sounds like a good business for one of y'all to get into. Get outside of this corporate America and corporate whatever you are, working for these elites, and go make some citronella juices and oils and lotions. I'll buy it. All right. Cell medicine. Thank you, Buddha. That is, yes, cell medicine. I think that's some of Dr. Sebi type stuff. Yes. All right. You said, I've heard a lot of good for Lyme disease and MMS too. Awesome. MMS, what is it? Brother, I'm sorry, not brother. You had a brother's picture. That's why I didn't know. Sandy, if you post a link, we'd actually look, and we got some folks who want to look into MMS. So anyway, listen. This was a long one. I didn't mean it to be. I thought this was going to be 10 minutes, but something inspired me. I thought if we actually watched the videos and listened to them make the case, that we could walk through and kind of come to some simple solution. So that's kind of my take on DDT. That's my take on pretty much every synthetic drug and chemical. My initial response when you say, is this safe to do something? My initial answer is always no, because it hasn't existed. It's never been on this planet. Your body doesn't know what the hell it is, and you never know you could grow blue bumps, green skin, and some wings, and that's probably not going to be it. You're just going to have diarrhea, blood from the anus, and bad things going to happen, blood out your eyes. Stay away from chemicals. You know, and I'm not anti-science with that, y'all. It's just that we need to spend more time with these technologies before we release them. There are things that are damaging to the environment, and there are probably other things that could help the environment if we ever got into trouble down the road. So I'm not anti-science. I'm anti, you didn't do your research, or I'm anti, you don't really know the long-term effects. I'm anti, we're going to modify the environment because it makes some money. And so I won't cheer anything like that until you've actually done your homework. And I don't think with this whole DDT thing, they've done their homework. I don't think that they're really trying to save people. I think they're trying to make money. And there are a lot of simpler solutions to save the environment, to save lives outside of just spraying chemicals on people, the same way we did when they wanted to kill a whole bunch of people in Vietnam. So anyway, this is Gerard. Listen, it's been a long night. Certainly appreciate you watching. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye-bye.